get the guy. Nobody did that. I mean, that was just so groundbreaking. And even like Mechanix, you know, when we played Mechanix, you know, he plays a shuffle. You know, it's like Hot for Teacher shuffle, right? So Hot for Teacher. Whereas, you know, obviously I like the Metallica version from No Life to Leather, as well as, of course, Four Horsemen, you know, where Lars, you know, plays the, you know, he plays the riff basically on the drums.
Yeah, definitely.
Super cool, you know. But Gar's thing was this shuffle, and I played Ron Duffy's bass line, or at least my interpretation of it. You know, I kind of did my own stuff with it too. I played some of my own fills. And I kind of was more to Ron Govney's No Life to Leather version of the bass line, you know, that I played on that.
When you guys recorded that album, so that did you like really like go hard with like referencing like the Four Horsemen before recording that? Because that came out before you recorded, correct or no?
Oh, so Dave wrote that song pre-Metallica, as I understand from
that's right.
How Dave. So he had Mechanix done in its entirety, and he brought that into Metallica. You know, they kept certain riffs and parts of his songs, and you know, then you know, created their version of it. Because you know, when you listen to the No Life to Leather demo, you know, they play Mechanix in its entirety the way Megadeth did. I said the only real difference is, you know, Gar played the shuffle beat rather than, you know, Lars played the, you know, the actual, you know, the guitar riff basically on the drums. So both are great. I like both. But that, you know, two different styles. So Mechanix was very much Dave's song for sure, you know, and that's why when he said I want to do Mechanix, you know, he didn't look like it was a Metallica song. It was his song. So as I understand, this is from what David told me, you know, he brought that into Metallica. So when he left, he took it with him. You know, it was his attitude, you know. I think those other songs, I believe, you know, he collaborated, or, you know, if he brought them into the Metallica band room, they worked on those together, you know, Metal Militia, you know, Phantom Horde, whatever stuff that he wrote. I get the impression that, you know, those were group compositions, whereas Mechanix was entirely his song, lyrics and music that he brought in Metallica, and then obviously told them.
No, I mean, the whole structure of the song is exactly the same. It's just slowed down, and then they bring in like like Dave says, the Sweet Home Alabama kind of sounding riff that they put in the song. You know?
Yeah, you know, he told me Lars wanted something like a Sweet Home, like a Leonard Skinner part there, right? So Dave wrote that kind of as a joke. I think he said, you know, he made something, and like that, and they kept that. So, you know, it's ironic. I don't know in the history of music if there is, you know, ever a song, let's just take Mechanix, right? That is essentially Mechanix is the song. Four Horsemen is a derivative of that song, as they collaborated even while Dave was in the band to develop it into the Four Horsemen. So there's essentially these two songs that are two different names, two different lyrics, musically the same, you know, two different copyrights. Right. And, you know, the melodies are the same. Obviously, you know, James changed the lyrics, you know, to the Four Horsemen and wrote an entirely
different. The melody is exactly the same. The way that James is going on the song, the way he's delivering his vocals, it's exactly the same. Dun, 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 dun,
yeah.
Dun,
yeah.
dun.
So it's funny that, you know, and it's in the, if you will, you know, it's like they both kind of have, you know, the same house, but just with a different doorway on it. You know what I mean? So it's, you know, I don't know in the history of recorded music if that's ever happened before, you know.
Nah, I mean, I've never seen it. I mean,
Yeah,
it's wild,
it's not
and it's
like,
cool
it's not
that
like
it
Iron
goes
Maiden has
out.
a, you know, Iron Maiden has Child, and then Paul Dano went off and, you know, did a different version. You know what I mean? It's like, it's just never happened. It's kind of strange, actually, now that we're talking about it, that it
Yeah.
happened. So, you know, of course, that controversy, you know, continues to this day, as we've seen.
I know. We just seen. I'm sure you heard about somewhat of that new interview with Dave. He mentioned that again and everything like that with Lars, with that riff, you know, from the
I
Sweet
mean,
Home
listen,
Alabama.
look, you know, it's kind of like, you know, when you work for a company, like for instance, when I worked for Peavey, we did a David Ellefson signature bass, right? But when I left, they took my name off of it. They keep the bass, right? Because it was, you know, it's Harley P company. I worked for him. It was, you know, and you know, I think in Metallica it's the same thing. It's Lars and James's band, and so if you're there and you write some songs, which did there stays there. You know what I mean? So I can see that. I mean, look again. This was all before I met Dave. I met Dave 6 weeks after he was out of Metallica, and for me, you know, you know, No Life to Leather was my first introduction to them, and I loved what I heard. Yet I liked as good, if you know, I think as good for sure, what Dave was writing. I was going, fuck, dude, No Survivors,
Craziness.
you know, and Devil's Island, I think, had a working title of Don't Get Mad, Get Even, or something like that. That's right. So, you know what I mean? So it's like when I heard him, you know, we're sitting there in the apartment and I know songs, I'm going, what are you complaining about? It's like, these songs are great. Like these are even better than what you were doing in Metallica. And it's like, it just went to the next level, you know? And I just, me, again, Forest from the Trees, it wasn't my, you know, argument to have with that, but I just looked at it and went, man, the fact that this band, you know, kicked you out, okay, bummer, but you know, they used your songs, they put your name on the credit, and you got paid. It's like, fuck, that's like a triple win, man. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So, you know,
100%.
Yeah. So, you know, but look, when members got kind of Megadeth, no one was ever, their songs weren't used and credited, paid. You know what I mean? It's like, you know, I mean, the song "Soldier On" the last Megadeth record, I brought the lyric and the melody in for that, and then me and Dave were working on that together. He changed the title of it to "Soldier On," and then he kicked me out. He just took my words off and kept the whole song to himself. And took all the credit. He didn't pay me or put my fucking name on it. So I mean, as far as I'm concerned, Lars and James were pretty generous to him. You know? So,
you'll take that ticket, right?
Yeah. So I look at that. I'm just like, yeah, that didn't happen to any of us in the Megadeth. So like, you know. So anyway, but you know, whatever. It's all part of the folklore and the legend of Megadeth and Metallica, I guess.
Yeah, and it's gonna last forever, right? Till the wheels fall off, which will never happen.
It is.
Those wheels will never fall off.
Yeah, exactly. So yeah, most people. Yeah. So again, most people, you know, maybe get a severance. I look at it like that. It was a severance package. You know, they you know, Metallica didn't have any money. They were broke. You know, they'd signed.
Yeah.
You know, they signed. You know, they made their record. Who knows if they'd make any money at all? The fact that it blew up like it did is just incredible. But yeah, it's you know, it's the feud of our genre. You know,
Battle of the Bands. Because it was kind of like that going in there, right? When he got kicked out and he formed his own band and like trying to just like take over the world. That's what I got like from a fan.
Yeah, and I mean, look, you know, when me and Greg Handabit met Dave, asking for, you know, where do we buy beers, and just trying to meet our neighbor. Like, all right, we got to meet some neighbors. We don't know anybody in town. We're only 18. We're too young to buy beer. The drinking age is 21. So like, how are we going to make this work? And, you know, Dave was the first knock on the door, you know, and you know, the fact that you know, it really, Greg, I mean, someone suggests we called the band Megadeth. You know, Dave didn't even like the name. You know, he didn't even want to call it that. Greg's like, tell him that's the name. And even Laura Kane was like, whoa, dude, Megadeth, fuck, that's heavy, dude. You know, like, you know, I'll never forget Greg. We were sitting, I think, downstairs in our apartment. It was after rehearsal. And Dijon had a girlfriend, so he was off with his girlfriend. Me, Dave, Laura, and Greg, and we were at our apartment. And you know, Greg kind of slouched down on the couch, and we're sitting there just talking about the stage, you know, what the stage is going to look like, because you know we were formulating all this stuff, right? It was like, what's the stage going to look like, and you know, how are we going to have 2 days in the band? You know, my name is Warren. Should we just call me War instead of, you know, Dave? How did we get to have 2 days? Because Dave was already Dave, so then we decided, all right, I'll be David. You know,
yeah, you were definitely David like the whole time as a fan.
Like our real names. You know, we didn't do stage names. You know, like, you know, it was like Gene Simmons, Paul Stanley. These are the fucking cool names. You know what I mean? And it's just like, you know, when you get. And I was like, hello, is Ellefson cool? I don't know. That's not like a cool rock and roll name. You know, I mean, I'm glad I kept it now, of course, but you know what I mean? It's like, you know, Nikki Sixx, you know, because that was what was going on the Sunset Strip. You know, everybody had they had stage names, you know,
like 1 syllable names.
Yeah, Nick Mars, Nikki Sixx. These are like total fucking rock star names, you know, and so, you know, we kept our names, and then the next topic was, you know, we need a band name, and that's, I'll never forget Greg, because he kind of had this sly look. He's kind of looking, he goes, I think we should call it Megadeth, and there was like this silence in the room, and that's when Laura goes, whoa, dude, Megadeth, fuck, that's heavy. Because Megadeth was the word in the song No Survivors, right? The Arsenal Megadeth can't be rid, they said. You know, that was the line, right? And when we saw those lyrics, you know, that's I mean, it's fucking brilliant, right? You know, Megadeth, you don't even know what the word is, you know what I mean? So it stuck, and you know, Greg forced the issue, you know, and then I remember Dave didn't want to have the word death. He didn't like the name. He didn't like the word death. Like that was just too cliche for a metal band, right? So Greg was the one who suggested. He goes, well, "Why don't we drop the A? You know, Megadeth. You know." And then Dave liked it because it's 8 letters, numerology. It's the perfect 8, like the infinity, right? It's
wow. So he's using mathematics for this whole thing.
Yeah,
with the name.
That's
I never knew that. That's fire. That's fire.
Like the gematria stuff, right? We have,
yeah.
How many?
I never knew that.
Yeah. So there was a lot of thought into it. I mean, it didn't just, you know, we were not a band that just jammed and smoked.
You guys were very intricate with everything. Like, you know,